you ever had a recurring nightmare? Those nights you lie awake, fearing to go to sleep, for you know what might come when you close your eyes. Billy woke up in the middle of the night, awakened by one of his usual nightmares. But this time, they were worse. Instead of seeing them die, he was the one who killed them. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. His eyes were wide open. They felt like he hadn't closed them in hours. The nightmare played in his head over again, like someone just pressed the rewind button and played it again from the beginning. Billy's hands felt frozen like pitchforks, shaking, trying to get a grip on something. His eyes just stared blankly at the blankets covering his legs. When the nightmare slowly faded in his mind, he raised his head slowly, and right in front of his bed he saw a big, yellow T-Rex wearing what seemed to be a pretty big but tight for his size sombrero. He was pretty small for a T-Rex, but was still big nonetheless. His head touched the ceiling, and his tail wrapped around him on the floor. It was too big for the room. Billy tried to scream, but something hit him in the head like a hammer. If the hammer was real, it would have blown Billy's head to bits. Heck, the image of his wall covered in blood, brains, and bits of his head was already on his mind. The image stayed for a couple of seconds before his mind focused back on the dinosaur. A dinosaur Billy could swear he had met before. The dinosaur leaned forward. Billy could feel the dinosaur's warm breath on his face. Billy could now make out more details from the sombrero. It was made of light brown felt. It had a crimson and white floral pattern on the sides and on the top, with shiny gold-colored glitter on the white spots. The dinosaur stared at Billy for almost a full minute. Billy was surprised to find that he was not only not afraid of the dinosaur, but he even felt kind of safe around him. The dinosaur opened his mouth and spoke. Oddly enough, his mouth was not moving as he talked. It was like someone from inside the dinosaur was talking from inside. "You okay, Danny?" asked the dinosaur with a deep voice, which oddly enough sounded more human than anything else. Danny nodded slowly as he dragged his knees up to his chest and he wrapped his arms around them, eyeing the dinosaur, hoping he was there to help. The dinosaur raised his head and then slowly looked at the digital clock sitting on Danny's nightstand. The clock shined the numbers 6:25 on its screen. The dinosaur turned his head to Danny and then spoke again. "Nightmares again. You should go back to sleep, Teddy." Teddy shook his head quickly as he unfolded his legs slowly and said, "I'm afraid of the nightmares," he said in what sounded more like a whimper. The dinosaur looked around his room. His tail slammed against one of the nightstand legs, knocking it over. But neither the boy nor the dinosaur cared. Not even his parents, who were sleeping next door, noticed the sound. "What's your name?" Teddy asked as the dinosaur looked at the toys sitting on Teddy's shelf. The dinosaur stared blankly at a teddy bear on the shelf as he spoke. "Don't you remember my name? We used to be good friends, Steve." Steve blinked, not remembering being friends with any dinosaur, but that might explain why he felt the way with Jerry. Yes, Jerry, he remembered now. "It's Jerry, right?" Steve asked as he crawled over to the other side of his bed slowly. The dinosaur looked over and nodded with a smile on his reptilian lips. He then turned around holding a teddy bear with the name Joshua on it. "This one's yours, right?" Jerry handed it over to Joshua, who hopped off the bed, almost tripping over the dinosaur's tail. Once Joshua got back his balance, he nodded and took it, squeezing it with a hug. "Can we play a game?" Joshua smiled softly to him. The dinosaur returned the smile and nodded. They both sat on the ground and played with Joshua's toys. Joshua played as the teddy bear, and Jerry played as the man in the jacket with the knife in the right pocket. They both made jokes and laughed as they played. Then they played checkers. Joshua was the black ones, and Jerry was the red ones. Then they played robbers and cops. Joshua was the cop, and Jerry was the robber. Then they played firefighters. Joshua was the firefighter, and Jerry was the knife. Then they played superheroes. Joshua was the superhero, and Jerry the multiple stab wounds. Then they played knights and dragons. Joshua was the gun and Jerry the bullet piercing the skull. They played checkers. Susan was the dead body, Jerry was the father. Finally, they played hide-and-seek in Susan's bedroom. Susan was the sin, Jerry was the broken glass. They kept playing until it was time for Susan to get ready for school. He heard the door of her parents' bedroom open and the steps of someone walking towards her bedroom. Susan panicked. The room was a mess. Toys were all over the floor, and there was the dinosaur. She quickly turned to the dinosaur, and he was gone. Billy's mother opened the door and frowned at the sight of all the toys lying on the floor. After a good scolding and some breakfast, Billy was ready for school. Billy stood in front of the entrance door, waiting for his mother to bring his favorite Donald Duck winter hat from his room. She quickly ran down the stairs with the hat in hand. She gave it to Billy as she opened the door. The bus was about to arrive at any moment. Outside, the front lawn looked completely white due to all the snow covering it, except for a spot with yellow snow his father was trying to cover with more snow. "That asshole Lucas took a drunk piss on our lawn this morning again," the father said to his wife between growls of anger and tiredness. Billy was about to walk out when his mother got in the way. She dropped on her knees and gave Billy a little kiss on the cheek. "I'm sorry I scolded you, honey, but you can't mess up your room like that." She stared into his eyes. "I hope I wasn't too harsh on you. Was it one of your nightmares again?" she said, concerned. Billy shook his head. What a lying prick. Meanwhile, the father had the idea of following that asshole of Lucas next time he took a piss and slam his head with a shovel over and over until his brains scattered over the white snow, like painting on a black canvas. Then take a smoke while sitting on his dead body. The image flashed through his head. A little smile showed in his face, but again, it was just an idea. Billy got on the bus and the day unfolded like any other day. The bus drove down the lane. The sky had not a single cloud, and the sun shined so much that the snow was almost able to blind someone. The bus stopped right in front of Billy's house. He hopped off the bus carefully, not to miss a step and fall, then made his way to the house. He stopped by the doorstep and rang the doorbell. His mother opened the door and smiled at Billy, who proceeded to walk in. Rewind. The bus drove down the lane. The sky had a bunch of clouds, but the sun shined so much that the snow was almost able to blind someone. The bus stopped right in front of Billy's house. He hopped off the bus carefully, not to miss a step and fall on his face. Then he made his way to the house. He stopped by the doorstep and rang the doorbell. His mother opened the door and stared down at Billy, who proceeded to walk in. Rewind. The bus drove down the lane. The sky had plenty of clouds, but the sun shined so much that the snow was able to blind someone. The bus stopped in front of Billy's house. He hopped off the bus carefully, not to miss a step and fall on his face and bleed on the clean sidewalk. Then he made his way to the house. He stopped by the doorstep and rang the doorbell. His mother opened the door and frowned down at Billy, who proceeded to walk in. Rewind. The bus drove down the lane. The sky was cloudy. There was no sight of the sun. The bus stopped right in front of Billy's house. He hopped off the bus carefully, not to miss a step and fall on his face, breaking his little skull and soil the clean sidewalk with his brains. Then he made his way to the house. He stopped by the doorstep and rang the doorbell. No response. Rang again. No response. He then realized the door was open. 2 cops were inside, looking down at 2 dead bodies on the kitchen floor. Jimmy stared at the 2 dead bodies. He could not see their faces, and he did not want to in case those were his. "Excuse me, are you Jimmy?" one of the cops asked, who noticed Steve by the door. Steve nodded very slowly. The cop sighed and then said, "We're sorry about what happened. We will try to find who did it, okay?" The cop stared into Joshua's eyes, trying to comfort him with his arm around his shoulder. The other cop was scratching his head while inspecting the bodies. "It's like a dinosaur did it. It does not get any better than this." Rewind. "It does not get any better than this." Rewind. "This sucks. I need a drink." This story was written by The Wizard Experience, starring Meds 2.0. And I really liked this story. It was kind of like a short and sweet a story about mental health. So, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you like this story and you like the channel, please consider subscribing as it does help out. Good night and sweet nightmares.